Good morning. Morning. And notice that I did not make it cheerful, nor did I paint it. I am not here to entertain you. I am here to tell you the most serious thing you may hear this year. I have been up virtually all night with this subject, and I want to say it as plainly as I can say anything. We have been saying, "I feel powerless," too easily, too casually, as if we were reporting a weather condition. We are not reporting a fact. We are signing a permission slip. We are consenting to something that has no authority except the authority we give it. And I mean exactly that. Now, there is no subject more important than this basis of power. Not prayer methods, not technique, not prosperity formulas. If you do not get this, your health will be uncertain. Your supply will be a seesaw. Your relationships will be bargaining tables. And your peace will be subject to the next headline. If you do get this, even 1 inch of it, everything begins to reorder, from cause rather than effect. And I am not promising a ritual or a ceremony. I am not offering a new affirmation to tape to the refrigerator. I am saying there is an inner acceptance that, when it comes, is instantaneous and self-authenticating. And it comes without fanfare. It does not require incense. It does not require a special hour. It requires honesty, ruthless, tender honesty. Take this as the governing line for the hour. Powerlessness isn't a fact. It's a belief in a second presence. Say it quietly inside. See if you can let it register beyond the ears. Powerlessness isn't out there in conditions. It is here, in the subtle consent to something other than one. The whole show of fear, the dizzy spell of doubt, the paralysis of "I can't," that is not the presence of a power. That is the echo of our own divided acknowledgement. We have granted place, law, and voice to a second presence and then bowed before our own projection. Now immediately your intellect will go to work and try to analyze presence, as if it were a concept on a blackboard. It will try to compare, define, and argue. What do you mean by presence? How does that work? What about history? What about science? And precisely there you will miss it. Because the presence we are speaking of is not an idea for the mind to master. It is the fact of being which the mind can neither contain nor prove. You will not reach it by syllogism. You will not reach it by debate. You will reach it by recognition, inner, naked, surrendered recognition. So let us be honest at the outset. Every time you or I have felt powerless, we have, perhaps without words, acknowledged a second something. Another will, another law, another actor on the stage beside I am. And as long as we credit that phantasm with reality, we must live at its mercy. But the mercy is false, because the presence is false. The moment you refuse it your consent, not theatrically, but actually, the edifice of powerlessness begins to shake. I am telling you that the shaking can begin now, this very morning, if there is the willingness to stop bowing to two and to stand quietly, humbly, in one. Now, let us put a bright light on what you have been calling powerlessness. It is not a cloud that drifts in from somewhere. It is the lived sensation of being an effect, pushed, pulled, threatened, indulged, punished by bodies, by people, by the economy, by time, by genetics, by moods, by the momentum of history. When you say, "I can't," you have already placed yourself as the tail on some external dog. The diagnosis is simpler than you think and more radical than you like. You have identified as effect. And when you stand there, as effect, everything else seems quite reasonably to be cause. The calendar becomes cause. The lab report becomes cause. The market ticker becomes cause. The neighbor's mood becomes cause. And you, reduced to a moving shadow, say, I'm powerless. Either slash or now, not both slash and. You are cause or you are effect. There is no respectable middle ground once consciousness is seen as the arena. If you are cause, if I am stands as presence, then all that appears must register as effect, as fruitage, as presentation. If you are effect, if I is the product of circumstances, then you must spend your days bargaining, pleading, resisting, and fearing every other alleged cause on the field. That is where exhaustion comes from. Not from work, from misidentification. Who is the I that says, I am powerless? Where did it procure the authority to sign its own helplessness? Who crowned it with the right to declare law against itself? Trace it. Follow it inward, not with argument, but with honesty. Is that I, the flesh and bone bundle you inherited from your parents? Is that I, the resume, the diagnosis, the bank ledger, the birth certificate, the horoscope? Or is there an I before the story began? An I present when the body was infant, child, youth, adult, changing forms, yet witness to all changes? I mean exactly that. Before the tooth came in, before the gray hair arrived, before applause or rejection, there was awareness. There was the knowing of being. That is the I. That is the one that says, I am. That alone is cause. Right identification, then, is not cosmetics on the human self. It is not building a stronger ego or a more optimistic mood. It is the discovery, quiet, undeniable, that what you are is the presence by which all appears and to which all reports. The senses parade conditions and insist, this is power. The mind nods and assigns authority outward. That is the mistake, the only mistake. The problem is not lack of power. The problem is misplacement of power, granting it to conditions and then bowing to our own grant. When cause is misplaced, life becomes reaction. When cause is recognized, when I am is accepted as the only presence, the same life reorders without strain. Do you see? The sense of being powerless is not a spiritual diagnosis. It is a symptom that the identification has slid to effect. In the instant you stop locating yourself in the product and return to the producer, in the instant you cease being the wave and accept the ocean, that elaborate structure of I can't has nothing to stand on. It was borrowing your consent. Withdraw it. Stand as I am, and watch powerlessness, which never had a life of its own, stop pretending to be cause. Now, having stood a moment with cause, let us name the shadow that keeps sneaking back into the room. I will call it the second presence. Powerlessness is never anything but the felt experience of two powers, God and something else, good and an opposing force, I am and a rival voice. The instant that something else is credited, fear enters as its minister. I mean exactly that. Every fear, small, reasonable, sophisticated, religious, is reverence paid to a second presence masquerading as a power. You can dress it in science or psychology or theology. It is the same ceremony. Bowing to two. Look at its costumes. Disease appears and is granted a scepter. The organ has authority. The test dictates law. Chemistry rules your day. Money takes a throne. The numeral in the account holds verdict. Invoices become judges. The marketplace writes commandments. Other people's opinions stand as magistrates. Reputation becomes your weather. A raised eyebrow controls your sun and rain. Time and age are crowned as emperors. The calendar rules like fate. Birthdays and deadlines inherit your allegiance. The past sits on an altar as an untouchable deity. What happened then must happen now. The narrative is your jailer. Different garments, one claim. God is, yes, but also disease. God is, yes, but also money. God is, yes, but also time. God is, yes, but also what they think. God is, yes, but also my past. It is the same statement repeated. Two presences, two laws, two powers. This is how it hides inside spiritual language. Lips say, God is omnipotent, while the heart consults the symptom, the watch, the balance sheet, the rumor. Prayer is offered sincerely, yet what is the content? God, please do something about that other power. Do you see the contradiction? To ask omnipotence to come help against a second omnipotence is to enthrone the rival before you begin. Thou shalt have no other gods before me is not a museum commandment. It is the living injunction against entertaining a second presence in consciousness. An idol is any condition to which you grant law. Fear is worship. Attention, belief, deference, that is incense. When you count your symptoms more faithfully than you count your blessings, you are conducting a service in the temple of a second power. When you refresh the brokerage app every hour to know how you are genuflecting at an altar that cannot bless you. I am not scolding. I am pointing to the place inside where you kneel. And if you have crowned a rival, you must live as its subject. That is the felt powerlessness. The pivot is here, and it is mercifully simple. Transformation is not getting God to help you whip the other power. It is ceasing to consent to any other power. It is not, God, fix this condition. It is, Father, there is no presence but I am. When consent to two is withdrawn, the rival does not need defeating. It evaporates as shadow in the presence of light. Two presences, two laws, two powers. That is the whole hallucination. One presence, one law, one power. That is sanity. How will you detect the second presence at work? Where there is hurry, bargaining, dread, or flattery, you are saluting a rival. Where there is calculation of odds, you are respecting a second law. What to do? Stop consulting the condition as your authority. Refuse the interview. Stand, quietly, faithfully, in the fact that I am is the only presence on the field. This is not passivity, it is fidelity. And as fidelity holds, one presence, not two, the felt structure of powerlessness, which lived only on your reverence, has nowhere to sit. It falls. Every fear is reverence paid to a second presence. Withdraw the reverence. Abide with one. Now let us say, plainly, what it means to accept one presence. Not the phrase, not the slogan. Acceptance here is not optimism. It is not denial. It is not whistling past the graveyard or varnishing the facts. Acceptance is inner consent, spiritual acknowledgement, resting in what is true before any fact appears. It is the end of bowing to two. I mean exactly that. The inner knee that had been bent toward a rival is unbent, and it does not bend again to negotiate terms. In that instant, you are not trying to be strong. You are no longer believing there is something to be strong against. There is a difference, mark it well, between a mental assertion and realization. You can repeat, God is, until the lips are tired. And if in the same breath you are consulting symptoms, calendars, and forecasts as authorities, you are still praying to two. That is duality with religious language on top. Acceptance is recognized when the heart no longer bargains. If this changes, then I will trust. Acceptance does not haggle. Trust is not a chip you place on the table to get a better outcome. When acceptance dawns, there is a quiet that has nothing to do with outcomes. The world may still be noisy, but you are not interviewing the noise for orders. Or perhaps I should say, acceptance is not something you do. It's something that happens when you stop doing the opposing thing. What is the opposing thing? Consulting the mind as lawgiver, taking counsel of fear, placing conditions in a courtroom and asking them to render verdicts. Stop that, and acceptance reveals itself as what was there all along. Be still and know that I am God is not an instruction to manufacture a feeling. It is an invitation to cease the divided activity so that what is can be known as what is. Now, we must bridge to the center. If God is present, God must be present as the very fact of your being, consciousness itself. I am. Otherwise, God is a far object and you are left out. That which you are seeking, you are. I and the Father are one, and I am is that one, uttered as your own awareness of being. Do not let the mind make this mystical and remote. It is as simple as noticing that you are. Before thought, before word, there is the fact, I am. That is presence. That is God as your very being. From here, acceptance is not bringing God into the room. It is discovering there was never a room outside God. This is why no ritual is required. Rituals try to move God into proximity. Light the candle, speak the word, ring the bell, and perhaps God will arrive. But one presence has nowhere to come from and nowhere to go to. The temple is not a building. The temple is awareness. When you rest as I am, you have not summoned anything. You have ceased pretending there was distance. You are not making a demonstration. You are witnessing what already is law. How will you know acceptance has occurred? There is a release from hurry. The inner argument stops mid-sentence. You find yourself uninterested in checking the odds because there are no odds where there is one. The condition may still parade its images, but it has lost its badge. It has no authority to compel reverence. You are not brave. You are true. And in that truth, effects begin to reorder from cause. Not because you pushed them, but because you refused to serve two. Rest, then, not in words about God, but in the living fact, I am. That is acceptance. That is the end of inner consent to any other power, beyond thought, into being. Now, let us look at the moment itself, this so-called collapse. It is not a victory parade. It is not a rush of emotion. It is not even courage as the world measures courage. It is structural. When the premise, something else has power, is withdrawn, the conclusion, I am powerless, cannot stand, because it never had independent footing. Do you see? A syllogism without its first premise is not refuted. It is dissolved. A house whose cornerstone is removed does not need to be argued with. It yields to gravity. So with powerlessness. It has been leaning on your inner consent to a second presence. Withdraw the consent, and the leaning meets air. Mark this well. You do not defeat powerlessness. To battle it is to pay tribute to it. The battle says, "You are something, and I must overcome you." That is worship in disguise. Resist not evil was not permission for passivity. It was instruction in metaphysics. You do not fight shadows. You do not negotiate with mirages. You do not plead with illusions. You stand still in light, and the shadow has no appointment to keep. You abide in one, and the mirage has no water to promise. You rest in presence, and the illusion has no courtroom to convene. I mean exactly that. The fight sustains the hallucination. Fidelity unmakes it. What then is happening in the instant? Law is relocating where it always belonged. The authority you had mistakenly vested in conditions is quietly, naturally, returning to source. The mind tries to dramatize this, to demand a sign, to measure seconds and outcomes. Ignore it. The movement is of consciousness recognizing itself. It is as inevitable as light displacing darkness when the lamp is switched on. No struggle, no argument, no interval. Just the obviousness of what is. Once you cease giving law to the opposite ceases to function as law for you. Not sometimes, not if you deserve it, not if the odds approve. Inevitably. I will give you a simple test, not a ritual, a test of alignment. For 3 breaths, now or at any hour, refuse a second presence. Do not bargain. Do not decorate it with words. For 3 breaths, rest as I am, before thought, before condition, and let the world be as it is without consulting it. If you are honest, you will feel a pressure release, a loosening in the chest or in the mind's clenched fist. That is not imagination. That is the strain of maintaining 2 being relieved by 1. Stay 2 more breaths. Notice the quiet that needs no promise. That is the mechanism exposed. Consent withdrawn, structure unheld, collapse without a fight. I can hear the objection, but the picture remains. Pictures often linger on the screen a moment after the projector is switched off. Do not be fooled. The power is not in the image. It was in the beam. You have turned from the beam imagined as 2 to the beam known as 1. Effects will reorder because cause is no longer misassigned. And they must. Cause does not consult effect for permission to be cause. Presence does not seek a majority vote to be presence. Once understood, it operates of itself, because you are not lending law to its opposite. Stand there, abide there, and watch powerlessness do the only thing it can do when its premise is gone. Fall without a fight. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Close your eyes for a moment, just for a moment, and notice what is aware. Not the picture on the screen, not the storyline, not the sound in the room. Notice the noticing. There is breathing, perhaps a weight in the chair, a hum somewhere, a thought beginning to form and then forgetting itself. All of that is moving. All of that is appearing. What is it that knows it is appearing? Let the mind try to answer, and then see that the answer is itself another appearance. Let the name awareness come and go. The naming is not the knowing. Feel into the naked fact that you know. Not what you know, just that you know. Before the sentence arrives, there is I am. Not a religious phrase. the bare isness of being. Rest there for a breath, and another, and another. Now, bring to mind, very lightly, one condition that has been claiming power. Do not engage it. Just let its outline hover. An ache, a bill, a face, a date on the calendar. Feel how, when you lean into its story, the body tightens. That tightening is not authority. It is consent. Withdraw the lean. Let the picture remain if it wishes, but do not step inside it. Notice that it is appearing to you. You are the seer, not the seen. You are the knower, not the known. The fear is an object in awareness. The awareness is not an object in fear. Ask quietly, what is it that knows this moment? Where is it located? Does it have edges? Does it have a birthday? Wait. Do not let thought perform. Feel the answer as absence of edges, as a spaciousness that does not begin or end when a thought begins or ends. This that knows is not threatened by the thought it knows. Waves may climb and fall, but the ocean does not consult them before being ocean. I mean exactly that. Now say inwardly, without strain, let there be only one, only this presence, no second thing to fear, no second law to obey. Refuse the mind's invitation to look left or right for confirmation. Silence is confirmation enough. Refuse also its bargain, the little whisper, if this improves, then I will trust. Trust is not a wager. It is the nature of one. Abide one breath more in this simple fidelity. Only one. Only I am. Notice what happens when you stop interviewing the mind for news. There is a softening. The compulsion to check, to measure, to predict, loosens its grip. The picture may still be on the screen. The projector, the believing in two, has been unplugged. You are not inside the circumstance. The circumstance is inside awareness. The body is inside awareness. Time and money are inside awareness. Other people's thoughts are inside awareness. Awareness is not inside any of them. Gently open your eyes, but do not leave what you have found. Let the room appear inside it. Let the task waiting on the desk appear inside it. Let the story others are telling appear inside it. And through the day, when the pull to consult the mind as your authority returns, as it will, stop 3 seconds and return to this altar without walls. Close your eyes or leave them open. It makes no difference. Refuse a second presence. Rest as I am. From here, the day orders from cause, not from effect. Now, from that quiet, let us say the simple thing that overturns the complicated thing. You cannot get power any more than you can get I am. You cannot shop for it, save for it, pray it down from the ceiling, or add it to yourself like an accessory. Power is not an article. Power is not an energy outside knocking to be let in. Power is the nature of consciousness recognized when you have ceased consenting to opposites. I mean exactly that. As long as you stand in two, you will try to get power to fight the second. When you stand in one, there is nothing to get and nothing to fight. There is presence being itself as you. Take the homely picture, an orange. The orange is not supply. The orange is fruitage. Supply is invisible life flowing as the tree. When the life is present, fruit appears by law, in season, without bargaining. If the life is not there, You may staple bright oranges on a dead branch to give a good impression, but there is no continuity, no sweetness, no seed for tomorrow. Now translated. Dollar bills are not wealth, they are fruitage. Reputation is not influence, it is fruitage. A normal lab value is not health, it is fruitage. Peaceful circumstances are not peace, they are fruitage. And in the same way, what the world calls power, position, leverage, control, is not power. It is a costume on the stage. The supply is the life. The cause is I am. Therefore hear the reversal, and let it end the treadmill. I cannot get life. I cannot get health. I cannot get supply. I cannot get peace. I cannot get power. I am life expressed. I am the law of health operating. I am supply individualized. I am peace revealing itself. I am the presence of power where I stand, because I am is one, and there is no other. Not the human I trying to be impressive. The I that is awareness, being aware of being. Now, the personal sense hears this, and immediately hatches a bargain. Very well, I will use God to improve my effects. That is the old idolatry in a new robe. The moment you speak of using God, you have split the scene into a user and a used, two presences again, and the strain returns. One presence dissolves the user and the used. In realization, there is no me harnessing a force. There is presence as being, and effects appear as they must appear when cause is unopposed. Prayer, then, is not a lever. It is consent withdrawn from a rival, so that what is may be what it is. What is the payoff, practically? Clarity instead of desperation. Response instead of reaction. Action arises, but it is not flung from fear. You make the call, you take the rest, you pay the bill, you say the no or the yes, not as a hunted effect dodging other causes, but as cause recognized, moving simply. The same tasks, the same Tuesday, but a different law is felt. You are not checking the weather of circumstance to decide who you are. You are compass, not weather vane. And because the cause is restored to its rightful place, within, as I am, the fruitage orders itself. Not all at once, perhaps in picture, but steadily in nature. Order, sufficiency, right timing, right word, right silence. You don't obtain power. You stop pretending you were without it, and the pretense falls. Stand there. Abide there. Let cause be cause, and effects will take their proper seat. Now let us walk into the rooms where the second presence most often hides and collects its tithes. Body first. The world chants that body is a law unto itself. Genetics, chemistry, statistics, dictating terms to your day. But what you see as body is a concept in consciousness, changing as consciousness is renewed. Look at the parade. Infant, child, youth, adult. 4 or 5 bodies already, all reported to the same witness. Which one was you? None of them, and all of them, as concept. The spiritual form, the living embodiment of God as individual being, remains, while the concept presents as improved or impaired according to where you grant law. When you accept body as a rival presence with its own decrees, you kneel to 2, and fear becomes your physician. Refuse the second presence. Let body be included in awareness, not awareness imprisoned in body. Then health appears as fruitage of realized identity, not as a trophy won from an enemy. I mean exactly that. Money next. Here the idol is especially polished. Dollar bills, digits, property titles. They masquerade as wealth. But these are oranges on the tree. Supply is the invisible life, intelligence, capacity, radiance of purpose, flowing as your very being. Separate the symbol from the substance, and the fear begins to starve. Dollar bills do not constitute your wealth. You constitute your wealth. If you credit the bank statement as a second law, it will sit in judgment upon your peace. If you stand in one presence, numbers become couriers, not commanders, arriving and departing under your own law of sufficiency. Attend to cause, your realization, and let the fruit appear in season. Time and age. This is the tyranny of the calendar presence. You bow to birthdays and deadlines as if they were gods with scepters. Too late, too soon, not enough. Yet I am has no birthday and no sunset. Newness is not a date, it is the nature of being. The same witness that saw baby teeth fall and gray hairs appear remains unchanged. If you let the calendar write commandments, you again worship two. Withdraw the consent. Stand as timeless presence, and you will find freshness, originality, right timing springing up as effect. Not by fighting clocks, but by refusing to let clocks define what you are. And now, other people. Approval, rejection, dominance. That is a crowded temple of idols. One glance, one email, one raised eyebrow, and your day rises or falls. Do you see what that is? A second presence enthroned as your weather. Love cannot live under that yoke. It becomes bargaining and resentment. Return to one. Let others appear as forms within awareness, not authorities over it. Their praise or blame may pass across the screen, but it does not assign you your being. Then love is free, clean, unhooked from outcome, because you have no rival to placate. You can say yes or no without fear, serve without servility, listen without being owned. In each domain, it is the same error wearing a new costume, granting independent presence to conditions. In each domain, the remedy is identical. Refuse the second power and abide as I am. Do not negotiate with the symptom, the balance sheet, the calendar, or the critic. Do not ask them who you are. Stand in one and watch each altar lose its congregation. Effects will take their proper seat when cause is honored as the only presence. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now we come to the knot that seems to tie everyone's fingers. You say, and rightly, God is all. You say, and rightly, one presence. And yet a pain in the body says, I am here. A bill says, I am due. A conflict says, I am real. And the heart believes the louder voice. That is the contradiction that confuses everyone. If one is, why does two look so convincing? If I am is the only law, why does the opposite knock at the door with such authority? I am not dismissing your question. I have been up nights with that same visitor. But hear me. Trying to solve this with the intellect is an impossibility. The mind belongs to the realm of appearances and cannot judge beyond its own pictures. This is known only by consciousness, not by argument. Judge not according to the appearance. That is not piety. It is method. Appearance is the report of the senses. The senses are reporters, not judges. Consciousness is the court. When consciousness is identified as effect, one small self under many laws, the report of the senses will echo that verdict. Many powers, many causes, many fears. When consciousness is identified as cause, the I am of one presence, the report changes of itself. In other words, what appears is a concept, and concepts are transformed as consciousness is transformed. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind is the same instruction. Let the concept die, and the form will follow your realization. Do not dramatize death. I am not speaking of your body, your life, your loved ones. I am speaking of the old identity. Self as effect, self under powers. That concept must die daily, or you will go on embalming it with spiritual talk while bowing to its idols. You will still be saying God is all while measuring odds, still praying with your lips while consulting the calendar, still asking the mirror who you are. The contradiction remains because the consent remains. I mean exactly that. The problem is not the picture. The problem is your consent to the picture's claim of presence and law. Consider the movie screen. The drama is loud. The tears are real enough to wet the cheek. But the screen is not injured. Pull your attention back one notch, from the scene to the seeing, and the spell weakens at once. Pull it back to source, to I am, and the spell has nothing to grip. Or take the mirage. While you grant it water, it torments you. Withdraw the belief there is water there, and the heat remains, the sand remains, but the compulsion to chase is gone. The world's reality is compelling only while consciousness grants it presence and law. So in the moment it looks most real, refuse the interview. Do not argue the facts. Remove the credential. Quietly, faithfully, let there be only one, only presence, only law, only I am. Do not wait for the picture to improve before you trust. Trust ends the second presence that was manufacturing the terror. And you will find, sometimes at once, sometimes like dawn gathering, that the pressure breaks. Effects begin to reorder because cause has been restored to where it belongs. Not by force, not by positive thinking, by the death of a concept and the birthless fact of being recognized as your very self. Now what do you do when it hits? When the email lands, the symptom barks, the voice on the phone turns sharp, and you feel the floor sliding. You have 3 seconds. That is all you need, not to fix the picture, to refuse a second power. First, pause. Do not let the reflex run your day. In that pause, notice the claim. Here is a power besides one. Come bow. See it for what it is, the second presence knocking. Second, withdraw consent. Do not wrestle, do not plead, do not rehearse the fear. Return, return, return to the fact of presence. Third, rest. Just 3 seconds of fidelity. There is one. That one is here. I am not outside it. You may put it in this simple language, quietly inside, not as a spell but as recognition. Only one. Only I am. I am not under this. This appears in me. Then leave it. Let silence do the weightlifting. The mind will try to bargain. Say more words. Get a sign. Refuse the interview. The work is not many words. The work is one consent withdrawn and one presence abided. From that rest, action will become plain. You may pick up the phone. You may let the phone ring. You may see a doctor. You may make a plan. You may take a nap. Do them as you would sip water, naturally, without making the glass a god. Tools are tools. They have no authority to define your being. When you act from one, the edge of panic is gone. Movement is simple, proportionate, clean. You are not chasing outcomes. You are expressing order. This 3-second decision can be taken at the sink, in traffic, in the meeting, in the hallway, with eyes open or closed. It does not need a room or a bell. It is not a ritual. It is a re-identification. Each time fear presents its badge, do not argue the facts. Remove the credential. Only one. Only here. Only I am. Stay there one breath beyond comfort. And if the picture does not immediately smile, do not move the ancient landmarks. Hold to one. Effects reorder because cause is honored, not because you push the pieces. You will find it must be repeated. Not once for life, but again and again. Daily dying to the claim of two. Daily waking as the fact of one. 100 times a day if needed. The repetition is not failure. It is training. Each turn loosens the old habit of reverence to conditions. Each turn makes the next turn quicker, quieter, surer. Eventually, the 3 seconds become half a second, and often the storm passes before it forms, because the weather of consciousness has changed. So when it hits, do not delay. Pause. See the imposter. Withdraw consent. Rest as one. Then do the next simple thing that appears, without making the thing your savior. This is the whole practice in a seed. Refuse a second power and abide with the one that is present. 3 seconds. Taken now. Taken again. And again. Until the day itself remembers and moves under one. Now there is a paradox here that you must face without romance. The collapse is instant, yes. You saw it. Consent withdrawn and the edifice falls. But the ease of living from that collapse, its steadiness in Tuesday and traffic and tax season, that is not manufactured in a minute. That is unfoldment. That is contemplation maturing realization. I mean exactly that. The lightning is instant. The climate takes a season to change. Do not be discouraged by this. Rejoice in it. It means the work is doable, repeatable, simple in form, and profound in fruit. Make some provision for studying it afterward. Do not leave this room and drown in noise. Take one sentence, there is one presence, and put it where the day will trip over it. Write it longhand. Tape it to the mirror. Put a copy in the purse or the wallet. Slip one inside the phone case so that every time you reach for the world, you touch the truth first. Do not collect a bouquet of sentences. One is enough if you will live it. I don't know how you could spend less than a month on those 4 words. A year would not be too long if at the end of that year, those words are no longer ink on paper, but the breath you breathe. Here's the way. Morning, before the world begins to tell you what it is, sit 5 minutes. Read the sentence once, only once, and then close the book and close your eyes. Do not recite. Do not decorate it. Let the words sink until they stop being words. Let one presence register as the fact before thoughts arise. Notice the mind wanting more lines, more ideas, more color. Smile and refuse the interview. Stay with one. Evening. Before sleep carries the day into dream, repeat the same simple practice. 2 lampposts on the road, dawn and dusk, and the middle will begin to remember. Depth over volume. 1 paragraph, 1 truth, lived. It is not the bookshelf that transforms. It is the heart that consents. You can read a library and remain a beggar. You can sit a month with a single line and rise as wealth. In other words, study until the sentence becomes you. And when it has become you, it will be new again, and you will go deeper still. Add to this a kindly self-observation, not guilt, not scolding, clarity. Through the day, notice where you still bow to a second presence. The body twinges and you take orders. A number wobbles and you surrender peace. A clock whispers, "Too late," and you agree. Do not condemn the seeing. Thank it. Each noticing is a door. Right there, 3 seconds. Withdraw consent. Return to 1. Over and over until the reflex changes sides. And understand this is the real no ritual. I am not sending you to candles or bells. I am sending you to remembrance, internal, continuous, practical. This remembrance reshapes perception. Perception reshapes experience. The instant is given. The embodiment is grown. Stay with it until the truth lives as your consciousness, until the sentence writes itself from within, until one presence is not a practice, but your way of being. Then the day orders itself, not by effort, but by law, your law, because cause has been recognized as you. And now, let us let this come to rest where it has been leading all along. One presence is not a bright idea. It is not a philosophy to pin on a lapel. It is the end of inner division. Division is the root of powerlessness. It is the fatigue of consenting to two. When there is only one, really not as a sentence remembered, but as being recognized, the argument stops. The strain releases. You are no longer holding up a universe of opposites. You are at home, without distance, without negotiation. This is relief, holy relief. Not a mood, a fact. I mean exactly that. From this relief, a freedom is born that the world does not understand. Enjoy everything. Enjoy health when it flowers. Enjoy supply as it circulates. Enjoy companionship as it smiles upon you. Enjoy it fully, gratefully, and do not cling. Clinging is a quiet vote for a second presence. Clinging whispers, "This form has a law to bless me or to deprive me," and fear of loss grows from that whisper. Let forms be what they are, fruitage. Let them come, let them ripen, let them pass into seed and season. Be willing to see it come, and be willing to see it go, because you are not living on oranges, you are living as life. You are not under numbers. Numbers are under your law. You are not kept by faces. Love is presence loving as itself. Hold everything with open hands. Tools are tools. Symbols are symbols. Do not enthrone them. Let them serve, and do not let them rule. Hear again the central claim, and let it end this subject in you. When you accept one presence, not by recital, but by inward recognition, powerlessness does not improve. It collapses. It cannot endure without your divided consent. Withdraw the premise and the conclusion falls. No fight, no heroics, just a structure that cannot stand without its cornerstone. Do not wait for proof to begin. Proof is the echo. Presence is the voice. Stand in presence and the echo will find its harmony in due course. So I give you this one thing to do later today. Sit 5 minutes, on the edge of the bed, in the car before you go in a quiet corner, and ask softly, where am I granting presence to the other? Do not hunt. Let the answers show themselves. The body? A bill? A clock? A name? When one appears, do not argue it. Gently withdraw consent. Only one. Only here. Only I am. Rest one breath beyond habit. If you like, write the question on a small card and let your fingers discover it when the old reflex reaches for the phone. That one breath taken again and again is the road worn smooth. We close where we began. There is one. From one, life orders itself by law, not by struggle. Walk out of here light. Enjoy the fruits. Bless the fruits. Share the fruits. And do not cling to the forms. Let them testify and let them travel. Your wealth is not the coin, it is your being. Your health is not the number, it is the life that you are. Your safety is not the fence, it is the presence that is all. Live from one presence and let forms come and go without making them powers. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.